Can we gaslight ourselves? This is part 2 of an exploration of gaslighting. We'll talk about idealizing others, seeking validation, and ignoring our intuition. You'll also gain insights on how trauma and past abuse can lead us to doubt our own reality. We'll explore nuances like distinguishing between cognitive dissonance and self-gaslighting, and how religious teachings can sometimes contribute to self-doubt. This episode provides a thorough examination of the many ways gaslighting affects us and offers perspectives on how to reclaim our truth and mental well-being. Today I have my friend with me again here today, my friend and fellow coach, Diana Swillinger, and oh my gosh, I almost was like, my brain did one of those little flips. Did I say Diane again? I said Diana though, right?
You said it right. Yeah.
Okay. We've had an issue with me saying Diane. I don't know why I do that to Diana. She's a friend of mine. And I'm not trying to gaslight anyone here.
That's just what happens. It's like when we call our kids the wrong names.
I feel like the older I get, my kids actually now, they kind of expect me to be a little bit weird. But anyway, I wanted to, what we're going to do today is focus on the things that the members inside of the Kaleidoscope had to say about gaslighting. And also, I just wanted to kind of piggyback off of how we ended the last session where you were giving some examples of how we can gaslight ourselves. I thought of some ideas too, and they're just different. It's so interesting how the more people you bring to the table to talk about stuff, the more ideas and the more ways that you can look at a situation. But I was just thinking that when we're survivors who are dealing with gaslighting in our relationships, or maybe we grew up with a lot of gaslighting in our homes, these are some things that I think we tend to do. I think kind of fall under this category. Idealizing the other person, wanting or needing that person to admire and approve of us. And so we're not pretending on purpose, but we are kind of fooling ourselves into thinking that if we show up a certain way, that then this person is going to admire and approve of us. And then we'll feel better about ourselves. Then we can accept ourselves. Then we can be happy. Another thing is believing the other person or giving them credibility. I think we do that a lot. I know I did.
Oh, yeah.
I wanted to believe the other person was gaslighting me, but I wanted to believe that they weren't. I wanted to believe that they were telling me the truth. I wanted to believe that what they said was credible. And when they were withholding information from me, I wanted to believe that they were not doing that on purpose, that it was just unintentional. It's just that over time, when you just aren't getting all the pieces of the puzzle, you can't ever put the damn puzzle together then. And if you can't do that, you can't really trust the relationship, right?
Right.
So just giving them credibility. Also not understanding or acknowledging how their emotions and their kind of universe is actually about them and it's not about you. I think that's really important too. Agreeing with the other person. I think we gaslight ourselves when we agree with the other person when there actually is a part of us inside going, that's not true.
Or that's not a good idea.
Yes. Yes. And then accepting someone else's negative view of you in order to be accepted by them. Trying to defend yourself and argue with them to convince them that you aren't who they say that you are. I think this can be a way of we're fooling ourselves into thinking that they're actually going to meet us halfway and believe us if we just convince them. If we just give them enough information, then they will see that, they'll see us for who we are and care about the relationship. I think we're fooling ourselves when we think that that's going to work. Also accepting, this is my last one, and this was a big one when I was growing up, accepting that they might be right. For example, it was easier for me to believe when I was growing up that I was a bad girl than than that my mom was actually being a bad mom in those moments.
Yeah.
I could not accept that. My mom was an angel mom. And I believed that up until my 40s. I believe my mom was an angel mom. And if you've read my book, you know that she wasn't. She was a normal mother, but she was also she had her own pathology going on, probably because of a lot of unprocessed trauma in her life. And she never ever did address it. And so that came out in some of her parenting techniques or
Let me
tactics.
add one last one. Over spiritualizing or spiritualizing what's
Oh my
happening.
gosh, yes. How
Yes,
could we
like,
leave that one out?
Right. Taking all the things we've heard from church or construed from books or even our own Bible reading and like, oh, well, he must be making the right decision because he's the leader of our family. He must really care about us. He says he prays about us, so he must have a good heart and really care and want good things for us and all this spiritualizing.
Yes. And that feels so good, especially if we want to be good Christians.
Yes.
It feels good to put that spiritual spin on it.
Yep.
Okay. First of all, I just want to make sure that this is still recording. Okay, it is. We're using a new software, and now I'm just paranoid that it's not recording because I would hate to do a whole episode and then find out. I guess that was just a conversation between you and me. I guess that wouldn't be that bad.
It would still be fun.
Yeah. All right. So let's read. Maybe we can tag team and just read different. Starting at the beginning. I don't know if you're there. I'll read the first one while you kind of get yourself over there, and you have to just kind of scroll down. I'm going to start with the first comments, but those are at the very bottom first.
Gotcha.
So, the question that we asked was, can we gaslight ourselves? Like, what's your opinion on that? There's no right or wrong answers. We're just wondering what you think about this topic. And like I said, a lot of people had a lot of thoughts about it. So one person said, yes, like when I'm telling myself I can't trust myself, I should listen to the 10 people around me with 10 different opinions who aren't living my life. Yet there have been times when I actually do get quiet and trust myself. There has been moments of clarity, truth, and growth. What is that? If that is gaslighting myself, then yes, 100%, the struggle is real.
The next one is we are taught to, meaning we're taught to gaslight ourselves. The abuser grooms and brainwashes us to gaslight ourselves. So that's where we're coming into agreement and giving credibility to our gaslighter and then adopting it for ourselves.
Yep. And that's also what we talked about last time, where we've possibly been programmed to actually it becomes a natural second nature to us to just live in denial about different things.
Yes.
Okay. This particular person mentioned the movie is it called Gaslight or Gas? It's called
I
Gaslight.
think it's called Gaslight.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's two versions of it. Yeah.
Okay. So she said, I've seen both the old and newer version of the movie. And yes, we can absolutely lead ourselves to believe that we're seeing things, that the lights are not dimming, that the picture on the wall was moved by us, that we forgot where we put the jewelry. Because we are honest people. I love this point she makes. And for some reason, we have to learn to deceive ourselves before we understand how deception works. At that point, we are all in. We lose our minds and go a bit crazy. We have seen evil. The devil is the father of lies, and we are no longer innocent. We respond with righteous anger. Unlike the movie, he may get away with his lies, but now we know what's up and can use that wisdom to go forward towards freedom.
Oh, she's talking about coming out of the self-gaslighting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. That's what I have to say, that one. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, the next one, 100% we can gaslight ourselves. First, it's like we take on doing our husband's job for him. Actually, he does it first, and then we take it on for him. So that's second, I think.
Yes, I think you're right.
Yeah, certainly that's been my recent experience and is the clearest way other people have been able to give me perspective and support recently. I'm interrupting this comment to say, this is where I think I don't like saying gaslighting ourselves because it sounds like we're against ourselves. But if we use it this way to get that perspective and get clarity, it works. So I appreciate how it helps people. Okay, this comment goes on. Second, there's a certain element of self-censorship involved in some areas of Christianity, I think. The particular kind of Catholic guilt found in the UK does this well, forcing a kind of hypervigilance over how we might be perceived, what the reality is, etc. We become our own mental judge and jailer. I also think neurodivergence plays a role here. ADHD is known to lead, especially in women, to excessive, rapid, and runaway thoughts, etc. She ends with, I think this all feeds a kind of self-gaslighting, and look forward to hearing what you two have to say about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She brought up some really good points.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this is an interesting one. This one wants to talk about health. So, am I gaslighting myself regarding my health? Have I been? I am very in touch with my body and don't think I missed symptoms. Now that I have a diagnosis, I'm choosing positive thoughts and working out and eating healthy, but I might still be in denial. Is that a form of gaslighting, or is that just part of grief and shock? And then do you want to read what someone else wrote underneath it just as a comment?
Sure. Yeah, this is what I love in the kaleidoscope is all the other women chime in and help each other. So another member responded to that and said, that parallel is helping me clarify more what seems like an important difference. Intention, I've mentioned, and this brings in the importance of knowledge. I see a lot of second guessing ourselves and denying evidence when we can't be sure. There's a difference between an abuser knowing they lied, insert abusive behavior here, and gaslighting us. And then we think they might have or probably did, but giving them the benefit of the doubt because we can't know for sure. But health is another area where we can't really know what this or that action will result in until we know. And then we can use hindsight to blame ourselves for choosing to believe something that turned out to be inaccurate. So yeah, she ends, I don't think hoping for the best is the same as deliberately manipulating ourselves, and your thought-provoking question helps me clarify why more.
Yeah.
So, we're all just trying to navigate life. We get information. We're trying to make sense of it. We're trying to do the best thing for ourselves. We don't have to trust what absolutely everyone says around us. You could go to 5 different doctors and they could say you have 5 different things going on. And then we do our best to figure it out and set a path forward. Sometimes we're right. Sometimes we're wrong. I don't think we want to be total pie in the sky. Like, I have a whole bunch of symptoms, but I'm going to choose to believe I'm healthy and ignore all of the advice that I'm getting. That might be self-gaslighting. But if you're like, I'm not sure yet if I agree with this doctor, I want to try a little bit of stuff, but I'm not going to negate it totally. I'm going to keep it here on the side burner, and I'm going to keep moving forward and figuring things out for myself. I think that's a part of being wise about it.
Yeah. Yeah. I just got to say, when I think about the forum and like reading some of these conversations, these and others conversations, I'm in the forum every day. It is so different from Facebook. I mean, the quality of comments and help is so different than what you see on Facebook. You get very high level stuff in Facebook, but you don't get a lot of, number one, it's not very safe. I don't know about you, but I feel like if I make a comment on Facebook, I have to be very, very careful because there are people that might attack me for what I say.
Yeah.
And you don't get that in the kaleidoscope. You're safe no, you're probably not safe to be an attacker. So if you come into the kaleidoscope and you start attacking people, you will be kicked out. But that's how we keep it safe, right? So there's not a lot of judgy pants in the kaleidoscope. There's a tiny little bit of that. But
I mean, maybe, but I think that would even be unintentional. People are here to support each other and encourage each other and offer different perspectives. So it's so cool. You can see under one person's post, you might hear 5 different perspectives and everyone's like, good point. Here's another way to think about it. Good point.
Yes.
Here's another way to think about it. And they're like, wow, thanks for all these different perspectives. It's really helped me. And that's the flavor of what you got in the kaleidoscope.
Yeah, I love it. I hate Facebook. I just hate Facebook. And I love I am so proud of our butterflies. I just wanted to say that. So you guys are getting just a little bit of a taste of this. All right, here's another one. Yes, we can gaslight ourselves. The abuser does it so often to us that we pick up on it, and we can use it as a form of protection. If I ask myself first, she puts this in parentheses, he won't, because if he does, that's worse. I think that may happen on a very deep level that we're not even aware of at the time. Yep, that is kind of what we were talking about before. we don't really know necessarily that we're doing it, but we're definitely doing it not to attack ourselves, but to protect ourselves.
Oh, I love this next one. This is going to resonate with a lot of people. So, can we gaslight ourselves? Answer: I think the resources we choose can contribute.
Yes.
Like the Christian marriage resources.
Oh
I
my
read a
God.
book years back before I found you, Natalie, and some other websites, and one in particular. I don't think we need to say which one it is, but one Christian resource in particular, one of the rules or definitions in there was that it is unkind to assume someone else is being unkind. So, if I was hurt by my husband's behavior or felt he was being mean, insensitive, or rude, I was being unkind by attributing those intentions to him. I guess I'm glad I at least tried it because I was trying whatever I could, but I was so far from having boundaries or care for myself. Okay, and this goes on for quite a bit, so maybe I'll end it there, but that is so true. We go to these resources for help. We think, oh, it's a Christian author. This is valid. I'll read this. And it ends up and so we think it's truth, but it ends up confusing us even more. I cannot tell you how many books I read like that, and I just kept trying and throwing myself under the bus time and time again and thinking I was doing everything wrong, and I just got deeper into the pit. I totally resonate with that one.
Yeah. Okay, this next one has a lot of comments under it, so maybe we can take turns reading the comments under it too, but this is the first post was this. I think it matters to clarify what gaslighting is and how intent plays in. One thing that was helpful to me early in learning about abuse was when I made a comment to one of my counseling professors that I gaslight myself about a traumatic experience. He responded that we don't gaslight ourselves, that we can internalize and self-perpetuate the voice of someone else who gaslighted us. That self-doubt, cognitive dissonance, believing the best of the abuser despite evidence to the contrary, forgetting or doubting our own memory, etc., are all symptoms of trauma and signs that we are or have been gaslighted by someone else. It really helped me to start to see gaslighting more clearly and start to differentiate between cause and effect. There's a big difference between believing the best of an abuser because we've been groomed to, part of that process is gaslighting, and deliberately manipulating ourselves to deny the truth. We can internalize a message of self-doubt from having been gaslit so thoroughly that we doubt even things we see with our own eyes. That part with that internalized voice of abusers might seem to be gaslighting us, and it also matters to look at what that part is trying to do for us. I grew up so we talked about this a little bit earlier, that it's actually trying to protect us.
Yes.
I grew up being explicitly taught that human logic is sinful and shamed for thinking for myself. There's a strong piece of deferring to authority when there's any question or doubt of the truth there too. I was taught as a child to doubt and fear my own ability to interpret reality. That was deeply internalized as an inner voice of doubt. But still, I would not now say that voice is gaslighting myself. It is a symptom of a lifetime of grooming and gaslighting. That part of me really cares about what is true, obsessively even. That part very much wants me to know what's true and has good intentions for me. There's no intent from this part to get me to doubt what it knows to be true. That part doesn't trust that I'm capable of discerning truth and reality and thinks it's more likely that someone with more authority would know better when it's in question. She's talking about this part of her that, that's has all this trauma inside.
Right.
Another question is in defining gaslighting is intent. Well, I'd say teaching me to doubt and fear my own ability to think was done with good intentions by my parents and church of origin, I might, question that. Maybe some of them had good intentions, but I think some people actually don't have good intentions. I think they're purposefully trying to make people a little bit more manipulatable and more compliant by doing this, but whatever. It was also done. Oh, she says that next then. Yeah. It was also done with an intent to control for my own good, quote.
In quotes. End quote.
Yeah. My parents in church were not deliberately denying something they knew to be true to knowingly manipulate me. They were teaching me something they believed to be true and vital to my eternal safety, although they did it in an emotionally manipulative, controlling way. So I was groomed to be vulnerable to gaslighting and internalize that lesson to doubt myself as a strong ally for a gaslighting abuser. I see the comments with examples of gaslighting ourselves, and what I'm seeing described seems to me to be signs and symptoms of having been gaslit. There's a difference between having a hard time believing we can trust ourselves and deliberately manipulating someone's trust. This is an interesting question. For me, seeing self-doubt and deception as a symptom of grooming and gaslighting and recognizing my deep value of believing the truth that has been manipulated against me by others has been incredibly helpful.
Wow. I have to say,
Yeah.
there's so many smart people that comment on stuff like this.
Yeah.
What a well thought out reply. Okay, now there's replies to that comment. The first one is, this resonates with me. I don't feel that I can gaslight myself. And when I read the comments here, they seem very much a response to being gaslit, with the result that we believe some form of the lie being told to us, or we believe some lie about ourselves or the situation as a result of how the gaslighting and manipulation done to us makes us think or feel, which is inextricably tied to prior beliefs and religious programming. Do you want me to read these? That's another long one. Do you
Sure.
want me to go ahead?
Yeah, because these are so good.
These are good. I can think of two things I deliberately told myself and others because I wanted or needed to believe them. One was
you know
that
what? Though? Actually, as I'm looking ahead, this one actually might.
Oh, is it too personal?
There's some personal information in there. She gives some examples of
Yeah. I'm just trying to peruse ahead.
just that last paragraph actually is
Okay.
good.
So she was giving some examples of some deliberate gaslighting. On the other hand, I came to believe all kinds of false, terrible things about myself as a result of the gaslighting and manipulation. I never would have believed all of that apart from the abuse, even in areas of known weakness prior to the abuse. I believed I could try and learn just about anything and at least improve myself, if not able to actually be good at something. The abuse made me believe things like I was incapable of X, Y, Z. And that's why I was destined to be bad at it, and so on. So she's talking about having a propensity to doubt ourselves, but that inherently, without somebody else trying to manipulate or gaslight us, we would rise up and be like, I see this weakness. I can learn things. I can do something about this. But with enough oppression and gaslighting and manipulation, we start to believe we can't do it.
Yeah. Yep. The original poster then wrote, I don't think I've had the intention to manipulate myself, so it depends on how we're defining gaslighting. I could make the case that there's an element of wanting to control myself and avoid accountability for the consequences of my choices to enable my husband's abuse as I started to wake up to it more. That's interesting. If I can convince myself that it's not that bad, then I didn't have to take responsibility for accepting behavior that really is that bad, or for how that impacts our kids. But that's also might be me reading more awareness into it.
Okay, so the next person was responding to the person who said, this is what the one person said, the abuse made me believe things like I was incapable of X, Y, Z, and that I was destined to be bad at it. So her answer to that was so true. And in my experience, it was very covert. I felt inadequate and incapable and afraid to try. And I don't know why. I used to be capable and willing to try. The abuse made me think I was a failure before I even began. So I didn't bother to try. So this is the effect of gaslighting on us, and then us partnering with that gaslighting and perpetuating it within ourselves.
Yep.
And someone right after it said, so covert. It is. And that's why we wake up to it at some point and we're like, what in the world? Like, I just drank some truth serum and I'm seeing what's happening here and I've got to do something different.
Exactly. Okay, here's another one. I still have trouble distinguishing if I'm just making a big deal out of something that bothers me or if it is truly him overstepping and not respecting me or my boundaries. That's the old "you're too sensitive" message. So that's, that's someone, and I think a lot of us are just trying to figure that out. And it's a process, right?
Yeah. This is that minimizing thing. She's wondering, am I just making a big deal out of something? And
Yeah.
so she might be self-gaslighting by minimizing the severity of what's happening.
Yes. Yes. Now this next one has a little bit of a thread. Can you read the top part there?
Well, that starts with a question. Has our systems of faith, for example, the church, conditioned us, especially as women, to gaslight ourselves?
And one woman said, I'm going to say absolutely. You're not trying hard enough. Don't have faith enough. If you would just fill in the blank, then he would respond. Jesus redeems everyone, so your husband is redeemed. His action will come soon enough. Number one, you have to want to be redeemed and partner with that. God's not going to force himself on anyone. Number two, it doesn't take 17 years for actions to catch up with redemption. It wasn't happening to begin with.
And here's another reply to that question. Oh, yes, for sure. I can remember my dad, who is a pastor, chiding me in confirmation class when I asked a why question. He said, "You're using logic again," in a tone of voice that meant you're doing something very naughty.
Unbelievable. Can you imagine parents who don't want their kids to think?
Yeah, don't use your brain.
What in the
It's like the
world?
Barbie movie when patriarchy took over and the Barbies weren't thinking for themselves anymore.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Another person wrote, I look back in journals from times in my marriage when I know my ex was lying about our financial situation and I was confronting him about it, and I never wrote anything negative or even hinted at there being an issue. I don't know if it was gaslighting of myself so I could just look back and see happy things, or fear of my kids or my ex reading what I wrote someday. I have also dissociated due to trauma, but I don't think that's the same as gaslighting myself. That's interesting too. Like, what is the difference between dissociating and
Well, remember,
gaslighting, and is there any
self-gaslighting,
overlap?
yeah, self-gaslighting and dissociation are both survival techniques.
Yeah, I think it's like a Venn diagram. I think they overlap somewhere
Yeah.
a little bit.
For sure. Okay, here's another response to can you self-gaslight? I think it is possible if your abuser can get you to doubt yourself. I remember a time when I was told that I was just thinking evil. My abuser was trying to use scripture against me. In this particular instance, I was not fooled. But at other times, I did go back and try and review the incident to make sure I was being fair in my recollection.
Okay, here's another one. This question of whether we gaslight ourselves brings up different thoughts in me. Sometimes gaslighting seems to be a broadly used term, and its meaning might get watered down. I looked again at a few dictionary definitions and descriptions of emotional abuse. I'm not so sure we do this to ourselves with the intent to manipulate, destabilize, and make ourselves think we're crazy. Thinking in terms of internal family systems, there could be a part of me that gaslights myself, trying to create confusion and distress in order to protect me from the greater distress that might be caused by seeing my reality as it is. It would be an extreme role for my gaslighting part to intentionally take, knowing that it's lying and aiming to have me question my sanity. I do believe that minimizing and discounting our experiences are rampant ways of coping with abuse and avoiding the reality of our painful marriages. Blaming ourselves, self-criticism, self-shaming, also popular ways of relating to ourselves that help protect us from the pain of being unloved and harmed by people close to us. There's too much confusion and cognitive dissonance in trying to make sense of what's happening in our emotionally destructive marriages. We have to use some ways of trying to survive.
Okay,
Yeah.
another person says, define gaslighting. I have always thought gaslighting was intentional. The main character in the movie knew what he was doing in the Gaslight movie, dimming the lights to confuse the woman. I don't think we intentionally, with knowledge, gaslight ourselves. We might convince ourselves something is true, but it's usually based on a lack of knowledge or a faulty belief system. The woman in the movie didn't gaslight herself, telling herself she was crazy. She just wanted to believe in the goodness of the man. We might convince ourselves we believe something because of many reasons. We don't want to believe the alternative, or what we've been taught is good isn't actually good. And then we have faulty beliefs. But how can you intentionally harm yourself? I have to just say again, I love this. If I could, I would change the self-gaslighting term to something completely different. I don't want to
Yeah.
associate it with the malintent of an abuser who gaslights on purpose for his own gain or manipulation, or to create, elevate his ego or keep himself in a position above, because that's what's happening in the real gaslighting, I think. So I do need to adopt the self-gaslighting term because that's what's widely accepted right now.
Mhm.
But self-gaslighting, the gaslighting is not, in my mind, synonymous with gaslighting as an abuser does. I just want to say that.
Yeah. Yeah. So there are so many more comments that they all, it's kind of going back and forth. I think people in general are saying I think we can all acknowledge that it's definitely a trauma response. If you want to call it gaslighting, whatever, we should maybe come up with a term. We should
Yeah,
coin a
we could
term
make up
for
our
it.
own term.
Yeah. People do that all the time. They make shit up all the time. Why not us, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, we could just gaslight ourselves and believe that it's really a thing. I'm kidding. That was a gaslighting joke. All right. So anyway, it's a trauma response. And also it's a thing. It's a thing that we do. And also there can be parts of us, or a part of us, that does try to hide from the truth in order to make life bearable and survivable. But I think the main point, if we were to sum it up, would be that to have self-awareness means to be aware that this is, whatever you want to call it whatever, trauma response, gaslighting, we do this to ourselves sometimes. And, or again, how do you want to call it? We do it to ourselves. It sounds more like we're perpetrating upon ourselves, or it happens within our systems. And once we're aware of it, that is the beautiful thing. When you're unaware of it, can you do anything about anything that you're unaware of? No, you're completely in the dark about it. Once you're aware of it, of this dynamic inside of you, now you can make decisions about what you want to do about it. You can make conscious choices about how you want to rewire your thinking, deprogram yourself from some of the lies that you were believing, and even address the gaslighting that's happening in your relationship when your partner or your mother or your sister or your friend or your child is, I want to be careful what I say about children though, adult child is gaslighting you or trying to get you to believe something that's not true. Any
Such a
final
good,
thought?
yeah, no, just such a good discussion. I think that, my takeaway is, and the way I think about this kind of stuff all the time for my own betterment and how I want all the butterflies to think about it, is we are the ones in control of the narratives and stories in our own brain, ultimately. Now, a lot's happening on default. And if you think you're self-gaslighting or you're coping, it's happening on default because our brain wants to help us survive, avoid pain, conserve energy, not do the super hard thing. And so it's just doing that on automatic, but it doesn't mean we have to stay there. We get to control the narrative in our brain. And if we can direct it towards truth, direct our narrative towards truth, we don't need to deny truth anymore, and direct it towards healing and healthy living and healthy relationship, emotional health, spiritual health, and embracing all the goodness God has for it, coming into the light. It doesn't have to be this self-gaslighting and survival mode. It serves its purpose when the stuff has been perpetrated against us. But we can muster up the strength and move into truth and light and love. And I think that's what this conversation is all about. So I hope it's given people nuggets of awareness. You don't have to do everything at once. Take a deep breath. If you're thinking, oh my gosh, and you had some light bulb turn on, take a deep breath, hang out with it, and you can take baby steps forward. But
Yes.
know that you're in charge. You can change the narrative in your brain when you're ready.
Yes. Yes. All right. If you are looking for a coach, don't look any further. Diana does private coaching. She coaches people in all kinds of things, emotional abuse. She coaches coaches. She has a coaching program, like certifies coaches. She coaches people who business. She does business coaching. So if you've got a business you're trying to get off the ground, she does.
And speaking
coaching. She coaches people who are going to be speakers or who are speakers. And she does it with big wigs, you guys. So if you guys want to work with Diana, we'll put her stuff in the show notes, but just verbally I'll just say it's actually Diana will say your website is
the best place to go. Well, you can listen to the Renew Your Mind podcast and you'll hear ways to connect with me there all the time. But if you like the insight and kind of the way perception I have and the way I approach things, I've got over 200 episodes on the Renew Your Mind podcast. And the website for that has additional resources for all this stuff is rympodcast.com.
Okay.
RYM stands for Renew Your Mind.
Yes. And of course, as always, we'd love to have you in the Kaleidoscope. I don't do private coaching because I work with a large community of women, and I would love to see you in there. It's full of beautiful butterflies. So when you join, you become a beautiful butterfly. So what are you waiting for? Come on over into the Kaleidoscope. Join flyingfree.com. All right.
Bye, everybody.